picture this. You have a guy raised in Missouri, the son of a trucking company owner.
Right, a totally grounded, normal upbringing.
Exactly. He's the self-described Midwestern drifter, right?
Yeah.
And he is actively trying to outrun his own reflection in the mirror. I mean, taking on roles as unhinged mental patients just so the world will stop calling him a heartthrob.
Yeah, doing anything to muddy up that image.
Right. And then you have a woman born into the absolute zenith of Hollywood royalty, like raised on Manhattan's Upper East Side, attending the elite Spence School, who literally has to explain to her boyfriends the subtle, esoteric flavor profiles of fine caviar.
It is such a stark contrast.
It really is. So how did these two completely different human beings become the defining absolute it couple of the 1990s? And, more importantly, why did their seemingly perfect minimalist aesthetic mask this fatal culture clash?
That's the million-dollar question.
As always, I'm Frances Lake.
And I'm Cameron Summer.
And we are thrilled you could join us today. This is Once Upon a Tabloid, the show about iconic relationships whose legacies lived on long after the spark had ended. And today we are going deep on Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow.
It's a relationship that essentially functioned as a massive cultural collision.
Oh, absolutely.
You have two incredibly bright stars intersecting at the exact moment the Hollywood industrial complex was shifting. Like right before the internet completely dismantled how we consume celebrity.
And we are going to take you right into the center of that collision today. We're exploring the intense romance that sparked on a notoriously dark movie set, the profound family bonds that were formed as a sort of survival mechanism.
Yeah, the total lifeline.
Right. Plus, the way they faced down a major industry predator together, and the ultimate fundamental reason why this golden union just completely fractured.
Which is fascinating to unpack.
It really is. Looking back at the archive you provided, it's like examining two completely different types of architecture trying to share the exact same foundation.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah. Like Brad is this rugged, functional Midwestern cabin trying to weather a massive storm of fame, while Gwyneth is this meticulously curated, pristine art museum. I mean, it's like Brad is actively trying to muddy up his shiny sports car image, while Gwyneth is just driving this pristine vintage Rolls Royce. So I have to ask you, did their opposite backgrounds actually draw them together, or were they just two incredibly famous people who happened to be stuck in the same VIP room?
Well, to really understand the magnetism there, we have to isolate exactly what they were both running from, or, running toward back in 1994.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So, Brad Pitt was 31 years old.
Yeah.
He had just exploded onto the scene in Thelma Louise.
Right, the ultimate breakout role.
Yeah, and he followed that up with A River Runs Through It, Interview with the Vampire, and Legends of the Fall. So he wasn't just famous, he was a global obsession.
I mean, 1995, People magazine names him Sexiest Man Alive.
Exactly.
Right.
But internally, the sources indicate he felt totally trapped by that. Being a matinee idol in the mid-90s meant you were a commodity.
You weren't an artist, you were just a poster on a teenager's wall.
Right. Which explains his career choices at that exact moment.
Right.
He wasn't just trying to muddy up the shiny image. He was making this desperate bid for artistic legitimacy.
Look, like taking on the role of a crazed, twitchy mental patient in 12 Monkeys.
Which eventually won him a Golden Globe, by the way.
Exactly. It was his way of screaming, look at my acting, not my jawline.
Yeah. And then you place Gwyneth Paltrow right into his orbit. She was 22, so almost 10 years his junior, and her reality couldn't have been more different.
A completely different universe.
Literally. Her father was the influential television and film director Bruce Paltrow. Her mother was the highly respected Tony and Emmy-winning actress Blythe Danner.
And didn't she have a pretty famous godfather, too?
Yeah, Steven Spielberg, who literally cast her as a young Wendy in Hook. I mean, she spent her summers watching her mother perform at the Williamstown Theater Festival.
Right. So if you think about the kind of access and cultural refinement that brings, it's not just about having money, it's a completely different worldview.
Yep.
She was this emerging, highly refined indie darling, getting critical acclaim for films like Flesh and Bone. She just possessed this effortless, aristocratic ease in spaces that Brad, despite his massive fame, still felt like a tourist in.
And that is the core of the initial attraction, because high-level fame is incredibly isolating.
Oh, I'm sure.
When you were operating in the stratosphere Brad Pitt was in during '94, the pool of people who can actually understand your daily reality shrinks to almost zero.
But the attraction wasn't just theoretical, right? It was highly visceral.
Oh, very. They met in late 1994 on the set of David Fincher's thriller, C7.
Which is such a dark movie.
Dark.
I mean, if you've seen C7, you know it is a profoundly gritty, rain-soaked, nihilistic thriller about a serial killer torturing people based on the 7 deadly sins. It is literally the last place you'd expect a fairy tale romance to blossom.
And yet, this is where they have this massive lightning bolt moment. Gwyneth described it later as, quote, major love at first sight.
Wow. And Brad felt the same way.
He completely corroborated that feeling. He admitted that he knew immediately. He said he got within 10 feet of her and just became entirely goofy.
Goofy.
Yeah, to the point where he couldn't even form sentences. It was just this overwhelming instant chemistry.
That's wild. But we hear about showmances all the time on this show. Actors falling in love in the artificial high-stakes bubble of a movie set, only to break up by the time the press tour rolls around.
Right, the classic Hollywood fling.
Exactly. But the fact that Brad bonded so deeply with her father suggests this wasn't just a fleeting set romance. Was he looking for an anchor?
I think he absolutely was. Yeah. What is truly crucial to understand about this relationship is that Brad didn't just fall in love with Gwyneth. He became deeply, intimately integrated into the entire Paltrow family ecosystem.
Yeah, the bond between Brad and Gwyneth's father, Bruce, is one of the most striking details in all these sources.
Bruce absolutely adored Brad.
Right. At one point during their eventual engagement, Bruce came up to Brad, literally with tears in his eyes, and told him, I never really realize what they mean when they say you're gaining a son. Like, I'm gaining a son.
Think about the psychological grounding that offers someone like Brad.
Oh, it has to be huge.
He was navigating an unprecedented level of global fame while still carrying the sensibilities of a grounded Missouri upbringing. And the Paltrow family, despite being Hollywood elite, they function with a very tight-knit, fiercely loyal structure.
So for Brad, Bruce Paltrow wasn't just a future father-in-law. He represented a true paternal anchor.
Exactly.
He offered acceptance and sense of normalcy amidst the absolute deafening chaos of mid-90s tabloid fame.
And that chaos, it really cannot be overstated. If you look at the photos from that era, you can physically see the tension in their body language when they're out in public.
Oh yeah, they were hunted.
They were the absolute it couple, defining the 1990s aesthetic of laid-back luxury.
Anyone who lived through that era remembers the 1997 premiere of The Devil's Own.
Oh, the haircuts?
Yes. They stepped out onto the red carpet in these sleek, minimalist black outfits with matching cropped blonde pixie cuts. It is permanently seared into the pop culture consciousness.
It really is. Now, Gwyneth has always insisted it wasn't a calculated PR move or like a coordinated power play.
Really? It looks so intentional?
She claims they just happened to both use the exact same stylist, Chris McMillan, for their cuts.
Huh.
But intentional or not, it projected an image of total unified symbiosis to a public that was relentlessly hunting them.
Hunting is exactly the right word, because we have to remind you, the listener, that 90s paparazzi culture was entirely different from today.
Oh, completely?
Today, a celebrity can control their own narrative on their phone. Back then, there was zero buffer.
Yeah.
You were hunted by photographers with telephoto lenses trying to sell your private moments to print magazines.
Yeah, Brad actually sued Playgirl magazine in '97.
Right, because they published illicit photos of the couple completely exposed on a private vacation in St. Bart's. They were constantly under a microscope.
And that level of external pressure, it forces couples to close ranks. Hey, Francis.
Yeah, Cam.
So Demi and I were at dinner with 2 other couples the other day, and this debate came up around household chores.
Oh, man, don't even get me started.
It's funny. There was a very clear pattern that emerged.
Let me guess. The women do more and have to carry the mental burden of keeping track of everything that needs to get done. And I bet they're tired of feeling like they have to nag and remind their partner to do things around the house.
Wow. Yep, that's pretty much it. But it's funny. Our friends Lauren and Patrick mentioned this app they started using that's basically like household chores meets fantasy football.
Wow. Not a combination I've heard before.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. You and your partner alternate picking which tasks you own, like a draft. And you kind of like negotiate how often things need to get done and how much effort they take.
Okay.
And then you get reminders and points for doing them. Oh, and you can propose trades. It honestly seemed pretty fun.
Honestly, I wanted to hate this idea, but the truth is, everyone always feels like they're doing more than the other person. And this seems like it could actually help fix that.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun, lighthearted way to make sure things get done and that they're fair.
Huh. You've piqued my curiosity. Send me the link. I'll definitely try it out.
All right, it's called House League. Check it out. Yet, Brad really leaned into it publicly.
How so?
Well, at his '96 Golden Globe speech for 12 Monkeys, he stood on stage in front of the entire industry and declared Gwyneth, quote, "my angel and the love of my life."
Wow.
That wasn't just a romantic gesture. It was a territorial boundary drawn in front of the whole world.
That public declaration takes on a much heavier meaning when you contrast it with the incredibly dark reality of what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, the Harvey Weinstein situation.
Exactly. This relationship was heavily defined by Brad acting as a literal human shield. In 1995, right as Gwyneth's career was beginning to skyrocket, she was sexually harassed in a hotel room by producer Harvey Weinstein.
She was 22, terrified, and felt she had absolutely no systemic power against the man who was notorious for making or breaking careers.
Right. So she confided in Brad, and his reaction was immediate and just uncompromising.
They were attending the '95 Broadway premiere of Hamlet, right?
Yeah. And Brad marched right up to Weinstein in the middle of this crowded, elite industry event.
Which is incredibly brave.
It is. He threw the producer against a wall, pointed a finger right in his chest, and explicitly threatened to kill him if he ever made Gwyneth feel uncomfortable again.
Wow.
And Gwyneth later reflected on how profoundly important that was, noting that Brad leveraged his massive fame and untouchable power to protect her at a time when she had neither.
It reveals a dynamic of intense, almost primal loyalty, because Weinstein was a notoriously vindictive figure, but Brad essentially weaponized his own Sexiest Man Alive capital to draw a permanent boundary around her.
When you put all this together, a fascinating picture emerges. Is it possible their perfectly curated, matching public image was actually a defense mechanism?
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. You see them wearing these matching outfits on the red carpet, projecting this unified front. It's almost as if they were forming a phalanx. It wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a suit of armor to survive the paparazzi and predators like Weinstein.
But that is the ultimate tragedy of building an impenetrable wall against the outside world. It traps you inside with your own fundamental incompatibilities.
Whoa, that's a great point.
They were incredibly strong against external threats, but internally, the foundation of the relationship was beginning to buckle under the weight of who they fundamentally were as individuals.
Which brings us to December 1996. They are in a small town in Argentina. Brad is filming 7 Years in Tibet, and they're standing on a balcony, and he proposes.
They are officially engaged.
The world is waiting for the royal wedding of the decade. And then a mere 6 months later, in June of '97, his publicist abruptly announces the split.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, giving the standard vague reasoning that it wasn't about any one thing. So what actually happened behind the fortress walls? Was her age really the issue? Or would this fundamental culture clash have doomed them, even if she had been 10 years older?
Well, if you look at the public postmortems over the years, Gwyneth has heavily taken the blame.
Right.
She has repeatedly stated she was a kid and wasn't ready, and that she was internally all over the place. She famously said that Brad was simply too good for her.
Which is quite a statement.
Yeah. She reflected that because she was only 22 when they met, she hadn't formed her own identity. She noted it took her until she was 40 to truly figure herself out and establish her own boundaries.
You know, relying purely on self-blame kind of misses the deeper psychological mechanics at play here.
Oh, definitely.
Biographer Amy Odell wrote extensively about what she called the sophistication gap between them. And this gives us the infamous Caviar anecdote.
I love this anecdote.
It's so telling. You have to picture this. Gwyneth is giving an interview during their relationship, and she casually explains that because of their vastly different upbringings, when they go out to a fine dining restaurant, she literally has to point to the caviar and explain to Brad, this is beluga and this is osetra.
Let's really unpack why that specific dynamic is so fatal to a romantic partnership, because it perfectly illustrates an intellectual and cultural friction.
Exactly.
Brad was raised in a religious conservative household in Missouri. His friends described him as someone who genuinely enjoys life's simple pleasures with a very down-to-earth sensibility.
While Gwyneth grew up immersed in the highest levels of global art, culture, and culinary refinement from literally the day she was born.
Right. He was a burger and beer guy sitting in a Michelin-starred restaurant, and she was the beluga caviar aristocrat having to translate the menu for him.
And when one person is constantly translating the world for the other, it inevitably creates a hierarchy.
Yes. It breeds a teacher-student or even a parent-child dynamic. Over time, the person doing the translating can feel burdened or superior, right?
Uh-huh.
And the person being translated for can feel judged, inadequate, or just resentful.
Mm-hmm.
The biography suggests Gwyneth viewed Brad as lacking refinement, feeling she was smarter and better educated.
And that internal hierarchy is absolutely toxic to long-term romantic survival.
Completely toxic.
There is also a persistent rumor that contradicts Gwyneth taking all the blame, though.
Oh.
A source told People magazine at the time that it was actually Brad who got cold feet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The source claimed he got caught up in the frenzy and the romance of the proposal down in Argentina, but when the reality of actually marrying into this elite East Coast family set in, he pulled the ripcord.
That cold feet rumor aligns perfectly with the pressure of that sophistication gap.
Right.
When you were 22, as Gwyneth was, you were still heavily reliant on the worldview of your parents. She was entirely a product of her elite upbringing. Even if she had been 10 years older, the friction of their core identities was immense.
Like oil and water.
Exactly. As Brad himself once noted when discussing a previous breakup with Juliette Lewis, the romantic idea that love conquers all is ultimately a myth.
Hey, Kim, do you and Demi ever get into a fight where it just seems like you're talking past each
Oh,
other?
absolutely. You and Michael?
Not anymore, actually. We started using Good Talk, and it has been incredible. Basically, when we're in a tiff, each of us individually chats with Good Talk, but it has the context of both of our conversations.
Oh, wow, I see. So it kind of guides each of you
Toward a more productive conversation when we do talk to each other. Exactly.
Very cool. Love that.
Anyway, to any of our listeners who find themselves in similar situations with their partners, definitely check it out. It's at www.goodtalk.club. Wow. So the fortress collapses, leaving both of them completely altered. They have to navigate the wreckage in front of the entire world. And for Gwyneth, the fallout was physically and emotionally severe.
It really took a toll on her.
She admitted she was utterly devastated. She couldn't eat, getting, quote, really skinny, as she later described it on a magazine cover reflecting on that era.
Yeah, she was just heartbroken.
She was so heartbroken she initially turned down the lead role in Shakespeare in Love because she couldn't stomach the idea of traveling to England and being far from the safety of her family.
Fortunately for her professional trajectory, she was convinced to take the role.
Right, and went on to win the Academy Award for Best Actress.
But personally, she spent years struggling to find her footing. She rebounded with Ben Affleck, which she later admitted with impressive candor was largely superficial, just based on ego and looks. She eventually married Coldplay frontman Chris Martin, which brought us the cultural phenomenon of their conscious uncoupling.
If you think about it, conscious uncoupling was Gwyneth finally taking ultimate unyielding control of her own narrative after years of being scrutinized by the media.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's now married to producer Brad Falchuk. But Brad Pitt takes a completely divergent path after 97. He leans aggressively into the darkest, grittiest roles he can find. Think Fight Club, Snatch.
He essentially burns the heartthrob image straight to the ground.
Yeah, he does.
He also becomes a highly prolific, Oscar-winning producer by founding Plan B Entertainment. And Plan B wasn't just a vanity label.
Right, it was real.
It was Brad building his own machinery. He was taking back the artistic control he felt he completely lacked during the era when he was just the pretty face in the tabloids alongside Gwyneth.
And of course, his personal life goes on to completely define 2000s tabloid culture with his marriages to Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie.
They really went down completely separate, towering paths.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He ascends into the stratosphere of untouchable global superstardom, and she curates this highly refined, elite world of wellness and lifestyle.
It is a profound psychological pivot for both of them. When a relationship fails because of a fundamental clash of personality traits, people generally have two choices.
Which are?
They suppress that trait to fit in, or they lean into it entirely.
Well, Gwyneth leaned in so hard she built a billion-dollar empire out of it.
She really did.
It's the ultimate irony of this entire deep dive. The very traits that allegedly alienated Brad, her curated sophistication, her elite background, knowing the difference between beluga and osetra caviar, became the exact foundation of Goop.
That is so true.
Did losing Brad actually force her to fully embrace and monetize the very identity that caused the friction in her 20s?
Monetizing your own cultural refinement is, in a way, the ultimate defense mechanism. She basically built a fortress out of her own taste.
So as we pull back and look at the whole picture, why does this specific 90s romance still matter to us today?
Well, on the surface, they defined an entire aesthetic decade. But if you look closer, they actually set a highly evolved, modern blueprint for how to survive being exes.
They really did. Because despite the intense, devastating heartbreak, and we have to remember that Bruce Paltrow was reportedly just as crushed by this split as Gwyneth was, they eventually navigated their way back to a profound mutual respect.
Which brings us all the way to 2022.
The reunion.
Yes, they reunite for an interview on Goop, specifically to promote Brad's new cashmere brand. And the dynamic is just remarkably warm.
Yeah, they are openly exchanging I love yous on the record.
And Gwyneth jokes, referring to her current husband, Brad Falchuk, that she finally found the, quote, Brad she was supposed to marry.
It just took her 20 years to get the casting right.
Exactly. It's a testament to the fact that a relationship ending doesn't actually mean it failed. It served its purpose perfectly for the chapter they were in.
That's a really great way to look at it.
Brad provided a fierce, protective shield for Gwyneth when she was young and vulnerable in a very predatory industry. And Gwyneth, along with her family, provided Brad with a vital anchor when his sudden fame was terrifyingly unmanageable.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over long after you finish listening today. We are conditioned by movies and culture to think that if a romance doesn't end in a lifelong, till death do us part marriage, it was a failure.
Right, a total waste of time.
Exactly. But what if the most successful relationships in our lives aren't necessarily the ones that last forever? What if a truly successful relationship is simply one that protects you when you are at your most vulnerable, teaches you exactly who you aren't, and eventually evolves into a lifelong friendship?
That is something we all need to remember.
Think about the failed relationships in your own past. How many of those profound heartbreaks were actually just laying the necessary foundation for the person you are today?